Okay, final video over your homework, your Cold War guide, the bottom half of the video. I just want to make some clarifications. So I'm at the part that's called Division of Germany on your paper. You can snapshot this and get these notes, making sure you have the right answers. So we just talked about how the Soviets ended in Eastern Europe and the Americans and the Western nations ended in Western Europe, and the Eastern Europe is controlled by the Soviets and West is controlled by the Allies, former Allies. Now, Germany's a weird case, so you might have read it and not really understood it. Germany actually, the west part of Germany, which was occupied by the British, French, and Americans, is going to become the free nation of West Germany. So there's actually going to be two Germanys. West Germany is a country by itself. East Germany, which was occupied by the Soviets, is communist because the Soviets won't let it be anything else. So the country here is divided like this, not perfectly in half. The weird thing about it is the city of Berlin itself is completely inside the Soviet East Germany. Yet it is split. There's a West Berlin and an East Berlin. So if you watch the video of the Berlin airlift, you know that the Allies have a road and some train tracks here that the Western nations can get into their part of the city, which is West Berlin, and they can fly in, but they actually have to go through East Germany to get to their city of West Berlin, which is very strange. So when the Soviets try to blockade it, which is an act which they were mad because the Westerners got all together and combined into West Germany, they thought that the West would just leave the city and let it go and they'll turn it over and it become part of East Berlin, and they just become Berlin again. But the Allies decided to follow containment. Remember, that's our policy, containment. And so they weren't going to let it happen. So they flew in for about a year. They flew things in by air, coal, fuel, whatever, food to the West Berliners and saved Berlin. So hopefully you watched the video from last week and that makes sense. But that's an example of containment, the Berlin airlift, flying things into the city of West Berlin. They had to because the Soviets blocked the road and they blocked the railroad. The only thing you're going to do is go to World War III, so we just flew over. So that's the first section there in this bottom half. Secondly, 1949 was a bad year for the U.S. and the West because the Soviets test the bomb. Stalin had stolen secrets from us, and they get the bomb too. So there for a few years, we were the only ones with the atom bomb, but now the Soviets have it. And that same year, China falls to communism, which you're going to read about this week. That civil war in China falls or goes to the communist side. Unfortunately, not much we can do about that. So that's pretty much all that was. We'll talk about that next week. Number 3, I got to bring you up here, from here to here, the new military alliances. NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. These are things you should have written down anyway. They're in your text. They're in the sections with the page numbers. That's a military alliance that we decide we're going to have. It's North Atlantic because the countries are all in the North Atlantic in the initial stages of it. So it basically says if you attack any one of these nations in NATO, it's like an attack on all of them. So that's a major military alliance in the Cold War. That's a super threat. The United States could get involved in. Remember, before World War II, we didn't want to have any of these alliances. Now we're making alliances against the Soviets. We also created SEATO, the Southeast Asian Treaty Organization, which of course was based in Southeast Asia, and CENTO, which was the Central, which was in the Middle East. So we had alliances which essentially surrounded the Soviet Union. They come back with their own called the Warsaw Pact. Warsaw, Poland. Remember Poland? That's what they called theirs. It's the same thing. It's the Eastern European countries. But essentially, we come up with these huge military alliances, which are dangerous, which could lead to World War III, which could lead to annihilation of humanity. So that's pretty big. So NATO is the military alliance. Containment is the policy that we use to try to contain them. NATO is going to help do that. And then you come over here to the arms race on this side. We start an arms race, of course, when we build the bomb. The Soviets get the bomb in 1949. Well, then we start building hydrogen bombs, which are 1,000 times stronger than the bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Think about that for a second. 1,000 times stronger. All the annihilation. The hydrogen bomb. We create ICBMs, which if you did your homework again, intercontinental ballistic missile systems. That means we made rockets which can fly across continents and deliver the missile. You don't have to fly over and drop them. Now you can fire them off. And if you watched the video, you saw the different ways they could do it. And it led people to create this mad, mutually assured destruction. They said it was a mad world because we could destroy ourselves. It's crazy. It's mad. It's insanity. That's because we had enough bombs to blow up the world 1,000 times over. Why? The question was why. It was this massive buildup. We'll talk about that in about 3 weeks. Sputnik goes up. If you're fans of what's Woody, Toy Story, that Toy Story movie, Toy Story 2, Stinky Pete, Woody get together. They're watching Woody's Roundup, remember? And then the show goes off, and Woody said, "What happened? It's a great show. Why did they cut it off?" And he goes, "I got 2 words for you, Sputnik." Really, it's 1 word. That's a joke. Now you get it. Because the Soviets were the first one to put a satellite in space, which really wasn't that big of a deal. But everybody started to believe that there was a missile gap, meaning they had a lot more missiles than we had. There was a big gap. So this belief in the missile gap drove everybody into science and all these space shows and everything, kind of like Buzz Lightyear. So in any case, we felt like we were behind the space race. It's going to drive us to the moon eventually, which is actually a good thing. But that's a little bit about the arms race. They build some, we build more. We put them on subs. They put them here. They've got different kinds. Okay, and then finally the Berlin Wall was the last section. Hopefully you watched that video of how that worked. Pretty dangerous stuff. In 1961, so many people were leaving Eastern Berlin, East Germany, because it stunk there. Communism doesn't work. They wanted to go to the West. They could see on the other side of the city that how good capitalism was working, how great the West was, and people were leaving. So Khrushchev decided to build a wall. Now, he built a wall. Now, I got to show you. Remember, the city of Berlin is inside West. It's inside of East Germany. So this is all communist. And here's the city of Berlin that's split. So the Berlin Wall, what most kids don't understand, is built like this. It's built around the city of West Berlin. This is East Berlin. It's built around it so that people couldn't escape. The key is they wanted to get out of the East, and it was to keep Easterners in the East and keep them out of the West. Keep the Easterners out of the West because they were defecting. They called them defectors. They were leaving the Eastern side to go to the West because it was successful and the East was failing. It was embarrassing. All these people are leaving the East. So the Berlin Wall was to keep them in. It's not like the Trump Wall on the southern border. It's like one long wall. Of course it's wavy, but it's like this. This is a wall that goes around. And the understanding is that the city's inside the communist circle. So they didn't want to let them out. They didn't let people get out. More to come.